Russia invaded Ukraine in a remarkable act of war on February 24, 2022. Since then, the combined death toll is overwhelming, but there's far more to this story than you may have seen in the news.
At the end of the Cold War, nuclear weapons really left the public consciousness. Putin has brought nuclear weapons back.
Russia is one of only a handful of countries in possession of nuclear weapons, which we've been getting a lot of reminders about since the war started. Russian leadership has repeatedly referenced the country's nuclear arsenal in what's being called nuclear blackmail. Just a few days after the invasion, President Vladimir Putin put Russia's deterrence forces on heightened alert due to supposed aggressive Western statements and sanctions. Russian threats of using nuclear weapons surged in 2022 and 2023. In addition, Russia has conducted multiple exercises explicitly practicing elements of non-strategic nuclear use. What that means in English or Russian is that, unlike the concept of nukes being used to take out strategic locations, Russia would use them against troops. Yeah, pretty serious. Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has officially classified these exercises as responses to Western military support for Ukraine, a country which, by the way, doesn't have nuclear weapons. Yeah. They transferred all of them in 1996 to, wait for it, Russia. Multiple investigations have documented a program involving the transfer of Ukrainian children to the Russian Federation or to Russian-occupied territory, which is a lot of words to say alleged kidnapping. These transfers have been reportedly followed by re-education, changes of guardianship, and in some cases, adoption and expedited citizenship under Russian procedures.
We have discovered an online catalog where Ukrainian orphans stolen from occupied territories are listed like products.
The Ukrainian government cites more than 19,500 cases of children deported or forcibly displaced. Meanwhile, the Yale Humanitarian Research Lab describes a network of at least 57 facilities inside Russia and occupied Ukraine used to hold or process an estimated 8,400 Ukrainian children. Inside those facilities, children have reportedly been subjected to ideological instruction, including singing the Russian national anthem. If you're wondering, in a general sense, Russian and Ukrainian are similar languages, but not the same. Because of the history of Ukraine, many Ukrainians can speak or at least understand Russian. So part of the thinking is that they are reintroducing Russia to the Ukrainian children. On March 17, 2023, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Russian President Vladimir Putin and Commissioner for Children's Rights, Maria Lvova-Belova, for the alleged unlawful deportation of population, meaning the children, and the unlawful transfer of population, children again, from occupied areas of Ukraine to the Russian Federation. The European Parliament also filed a motion of resolution demanding the return of the deported children, describing their transfer and indoctrination as war crimes and crimes against humanity. Lvova-Belova claims that Russia didn't forcibly take the children. She also said that the list Russia was given as part of the ceasefire discussions only listed the names of 339 displaced children, not thousands. As of September 2025, more than 1,600 Ukrainian children have been returned from Russia, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Protests have sprung up worldwide calling for an end to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Even Russian citizens have taken to the streets in opposition to the war. In response, Russian authorities have carried out mass arrests, detentions, and prosecutions of these citizen activists. The crackdown began immediately. According to independent watchdog organization OVD Info, between February 24th to 28th, 2022, at least 5,982 protesters were detained across Russia. Human rights advocates claim that Russian law enforcement relied heavily on new or hastily amended criminal provisions enacted in March 2022 to justify the arrests. These include Criminal Code Articles 2073 involving spreading false information about the armed forces and 2803 discrediting the armed forces. But things didn't end there. Subsequent laws permit property confiscation for anti-war statements, while other amendments expand grounds to strip awards and add individuals to blacklists. As of February 2025, estimates point to more than 20,000 people being arrested in Russia for anti-war sentiments.
A Russian politician has been found dead after a mysterious fall from a hotel.
Some inspired investigators have taken a look at every Russian oligarch who has died since Russia invaded Ukraine, and they noticed some chilling details. As of 2025, there have been dozens of high-profile deaths that could be classified as suspicious or unexplained. They cheekily called it sudden Russian death syndrome. Some of the recurring patterns include fatal falls from windows and balconies, sudden illnesses, and accidents. and many of the dead were connected to the energy sector or state institutions, making people speculate that the deaths were connected to secrets Putin may want buried.
He does mete out revenge cold very often.
Among the most noteworthy examples is Ravel Maganov, the 67-year-old chairman of Lukoil, the second largest oil producer in Russia. Maganov died after falling from a hospital window in Moscow on September 1, 2022, under unclear circumstances. That December, Russian businessman and regional lawmaker Pavel Antov died after a fall at a hotel in India. According to the New Zealand Herald, prior to his death, Antov publicly described Russia's attacks on Ukraine as extremely hard to call anything other than terror. Shortly before his death, Antov reaffirmed his support for Putin, but it may have been too late.
The politics of fear therefore dominates Russian politics, and it dominates the way that society even is structured within Russia.
More recently, on March 2, 2025, three-time Olympic medalist Buvesar Saitiev, a former world-class freestyle wrestler and lawmaker, was found lying in the street after falling 3 stories from the window of his Moscow apartment. He was rushed to the hospital but died of his injuries. Bottom line, stay away from windows. According to an Amnesty International report, the situation is dire inside Russia's detainment camps in both occupied Ukraine and the motherland. The report reads, Russian authorities have subjected Ukrainian prisoners of war and civilian captives to torture, prolonged incommunicado detention, enforced disappearance, and other inhumane treatment, which amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity.
We weren't allowed to share food. They did that on purpose. There were 16 of us, and they'd give us 10 pieces of bread.
International media outlets have also documented executions of Ukrainian POWs by Russian forces. On March 13, 2025, a drone recorded an incident in Pytia-Khatki, a village in southern Ukraine, where 4 Ukrainian captives surrendered to Russian soldiers only to be shot. As of April 2025, Ukrainian prosecutors have more than 200 POW killings under investigation. Ukraine has also been under fire for reportedly abusing, torturing, and even executing Russian POWs. Barely a month after the war began, Human Rights Watch urged Ukrainian authorities to stop posting videos on social media of captured Russian soldiers that exposed them to humiliation. In April 2022, Reuters authenticated footage that appeared to show Ukrainian fighters shooting a captured, badly wounded Russian soldier near Kyiv, prompting calls for investigation. In 2024, Russia and Ukraine exchanged hundreds of POWs under mediated conditions. Most recently, in August 2025, the Russian Ministry of Defense claimed that the 2 countries exchanged 146 POWs. Despite the fact that the Russia-Ukraine war only directly involves the 2 countries, members of NATO have reported repeated cross-border air incidents involving Russian drones or debris. In 2024, Romania, a NATO member state, found fragments that its defense minister said may be of a drone assessed as Russian on its soil near the Danube River. On September 10, 2025, the Polish government announced that 19 objects, allegedly Russian drones, entered Poland's airspace and were shot down. This marked the first time a NATO member state participated in the ongoing conflict, albeit indirectly since it started. One of the anti-air missiles Poland fired reportedly hit a house in the Polish village of Wielkie Wola. If you're not familiar with the general geography of Poland, you'll be surprised to learn that the closest country to Wielkie Wola is Belarus, not Ukraine. In a later statement, Russia's ambassador to the United Nations claimed that given the limited range of their drones, it would have been physically impossible for them to breach Polish airspace. In response to this and other documented incidents over the last few years, NATO expanded its aerial surveillance in Eastern Europe under the codename Eastern Sentry to monitor Allied airspace. With that said, Russia hasn't been totally in denial of the unintended consequences of the war in Ukraine on other territories.
Putin is determined to weaken, if not to dismantle, the NATO alliance, and he's become more brazen in his efforts.
In October 2025, Putin admitted that anti-air missiles fired by Russia and intended to take down a Ukrainian drone accidentally hit an Azerbaijani plane in December 2024, killing 38. Since the February 2022 invasion, Russian forces have caused widespread damage not just to Ukraine's physical buildings, but also to its cultural heritage. According to UNESCO, as of September 22, 2025, at least 509 cultural sites have been damaged, including 152 religious sites, 268 buildings of historical or artistic interest, 34 museums, 33 monuments, 18 libraries, 1 archive, and 3 archaeological sites. Experts from the United Nations have characterized the destruction of these sites as deliberate moves to erase the country's cultural history and identity. In 2023, for example, a Russian strike in Odessa damaged the Transfiguration Cathedral. Located within the historic center of Odessa World Heritage Property, the church, founded at the turn of the 19th century, was the first and foremost Orthodox church in the city. 2 years later, another important cultural monument in Ukraine, the St. Sophia Cathedral in Kyiv, was damaged by a Russian attack, though not critically. The cathedral, which was constructed in the 11th century, is also on the list of UNESCO's World Heritage Sites. UNESCO Director General Audrey Azoulay has vehemently criticized Russia's actions. She cited the 1954 Hague Convention for the protection of cultural property in the event of armed conflict and the 1972 World Heritage Convention as safeguards against the intentional destruction of cultural sites, to which the Russian Federation is duty-bound. When we think about the casualties of war, we tend to think solely in terms of human casualties. Lives lost, buildings destroyed, economies tanking. But what is forgotten in these discussions is that when one country takes up arms against another, nature also pays a price. Since 2022, environmentalists have raised alarms about contaminated soil, damaged water treatment plants, petrochemical burns, and long-term ecosystem disruption in Ukraine, while denouncing the ecocide caused by the Russian invasion. From 2022 to 2023, within just 1 year, Russia's war in Ukraine caused over $51 billion in environmental damage, according to Ukraine's Environment Ministry. By February 2024, an updated report put the figure at roughly $60 billion, as forest fires, industrial pollution, and widespread mining expanded the impact. The most recent tally from July 2025 pegs the total war-related environmental damage at almost $125 billion. Under Russia's new and amended laws over the last few years, the Federation has been empowered to investigate, detain, and imprison journalists for war reporting and commentary, and what Reporters Without Borders has called a witch hunt. From February 2022 to August 2025, at least 26 journalists have been imprisoned on criminal charges, with many cases tied to so-called fake news or anti-state accusations. More than half were Russian. To date, 4 have been released, including Evan Gershkovich, a US-based Wall Street Journal reporter charged with espionage and detained for more than a year.
The trial was held behind closed doors. Russia has never published any clear evidence supporting its claims against Gershkovich.
Also released was Russian-American journalist Alsu Kurmasheva, an editor at Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, who was convicted for spreading false information about the Russian military. At least one journalist has died, Victoria Roshchina, a Ukrainian freelance journalist whose body was sent back to Ukraine after more than a year of detainment. Hundreds of Russian journalists have sought safety abroad. Reporters Without Borders estimated that between 1,500 and 1,800 had gone into exile by late 2023. For some of them, this is the point of no return. According to a July 2024 Committee to Protect Journalists report, arrest warrants await over a dozen journalists should they ever return to Russia. Sentences have also been issued in absentia for critical coverage of the war, including Masha Gessen and Mikhail Zigger. Meanwhile, Russian courts have continued to open new cases. From early March until March 31, 2022, Russian forces occupied the Ukrainian city of Bucha, right outside of Kyiv. It's just about 15 miles northwest of Kyiv, so it's basically a suburb in common terms. During the occupation, satellite images from March 18th and 19th showed at least one street strewn with bodies. After the withdrawal, grisly photos and videos came to light. They showed dead civilians and a trench where the dead were buried. 4 months after Russian withdrawal, Ukrainian authorities reported finding a total of 458 bodies in Bucha, including 9 children. 419 showed signs of gunshot wounds, torture, or other violent trauma, and 39 deaths were attributed to natural causes, perhaps linked to conditions under the occupation. There was also a bag full of remains belonging to different people. Bucha's mayor told the Washington Post the body parts were too fragmented, decomposed, or badly mutilated to be identified. Over the last 3 years, investigations by the Ukrainian government, international monitoring organizations, and independent media have reportedly uncovered evidence pointing to Russian forces being responsible for the detentions and execution of civilians. Still, Russia denies responsibility for what transpired there.